It's 5:30, so we'll call to order this meeting for Monday, May 22nd. Jordan, would you start us off with the roll call, please?
Please respond by stating present. Councilmember Ronayne.
Present.
Faubourg.
Present.
Liebelt.
Present.
Reif.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Reinbold.
Present.
Langer.
Present.
Norvstrup. Mayor Schoeneman.
Present. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. First order of business will be to approve this week's agenda. I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Reinbold and a second from Councilman Reif. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next is approval of the minutes from our previous meeting, which took place on May 15th. I would entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson, a second from Councilwoman Liebelt. Does anyone on the council have anything, changes or edits or any of that kind of stuff? All right, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I rolled in. I didn't see anyone sign up for our open forum at that point. Anyone got anything for us? All right, we'll move along to our consent calendar, where we've got 6 items of routine city business, including reports, a lottery notice, some licenses, plats, setting hearing date for a couple of different things. Would someone care to make a motion on our consent calendar agenda items?
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Reinbold. Anyone on the council have anything to discuss on any of these items? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Abstain.
With 1 abstention, all motion does carry. Next, we'll move along to our old business, where we've got our second reading and final adoption of an ordinance 230502, which adjusts city's fee schedule for 2023, setting certain fees and charges for services provided by the city of Aberdeen. Jordan, no changes, I assume.
That's correct, Mayor.
All right.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion from Councilman Reif, second from Councilman Johnson. Anyone from the council want to discuss any of these particular fees? All right, then Jordan, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Ronayne.
Aye.
Faubourg.
Aye.
Liebelt.
Aye.
Reif.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Langer.
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Second and final item on old business here today is our possible second reading and final adoption of an ordinance 230503, which supplements various budget activities for the Parks Rec and Forestry Department. Jordan, is that exactly as it was when we voted last meeting?
That's correct. No changes, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Reinbold and a second from Councilwoman Liebelt. Anyone from the council before we take our second and final vote on this one? Jordan?
Councilmember Langer.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reif.
Aye.
Liebelt.
Aye.
Faubourg.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Move right along to our new business, where we've got the possible hearing and approval of a first reading of an ordinance titled 230501, which amends zoning regulations for the city code regarding multi-use storage facilities. And here to tell us a little bit about that is Mr. Brett Bill. Brett.
The ordinance itself is pretty simple. We are looking at adding a definition for multi-storage facilities, as well as adding that terminology into the C2 Highway Commercial District, as well as into the I2 Industrial District. And within that C2 district, we're also removing the length, the width, and the height requirements for these type of units. Just makes it easier for development. We've been seeing these things come through the zoning board so often. We thought now's the time to make a change. Since you're seeing it that many times, maybe we should amend the ordinance so we don't have to require variances and things for these items.
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion, Councilman Reinbold, second, Councilman Johnson. So, Brett, I know we were talking over by the railroad tracks near, must be 3rd or 4th Street would be one of the places, and then just kind of west of the overpass. Both of those would have been industrial.
Correct.
Zoning and would have required variances
Yep.
in order to build.
That's correct.
And then the setback thing, that was also becoming an issue.
It was.
All right, does anyone on the council have any questions for Mr. Bill or any thoughts on the topic?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I'm just curious about how other cities have defined multi-use storage facility. I mean, do other cities also have no restrictions on size?
Nowadays they do. They don't. That's correct.
And so, can you give me an example of where these industrial and commercial districts are?
Within Aberdeen,
Right.
we've got the industrial park on the east side of town. We have numerous industrial districts along the railroad tracks that runs through the central part of town. And then, of course, our highway commercial district is 6th Avenue. There's areas offshoot from 6th Avenue. It's scattered around throughout town. It's most of the place of our commercial development.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
is there a way that we could restrict it in the downtown corridor area within, let's say a half a mile on either
That's on
side?
central business district, so it's not permitted there.
What, like if you go a half mile east of the railroad tracks?
And they're required to have a special
I
exception
mean, on Main
within,
Street?
within those districts. So there is a public hearing on those.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Appreciate your work on this one. I know that there has been a lot of interest, especially over where Meister had put his and so forth. So, go ahead, Jordan. Would you give us a roll call vote?
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Fauberg,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got a public hearing and possible approval of a resolution for annexation of property described as Lot 21, Block 11, Wiley Park Estates, First Edition, which is physically located at 1416 Willow Drive. Brett, would you tell us a little bit about this annexation?
Sure. Dennis and Marilyn Maloney are requesting to annex a 69-foot by 140-foot vacant lot adjacent to their home. Staff and Planning Commission recommend approval.
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Rife and a second from Councilman Johnson. And Brett, it's been a little while since we've talked to our folks over at the county for these annexations. We're sending those guys notice.
Yes, we are.
Well, that was an area where those guys were particularly concerned. I'm glad to hear it. Any questions for Brett on this one or any comments on the matter? All right, then. Jordan?
Councilmember Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Fauberg,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Abstain.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Move along to our public hearing and possible approval of a transfer of retail on-sale liquor license from Hey John Incorporated, doing business as Main Street Project, which is located at 917 Main Street South, to Hey John Incorporating, doing business as Rolly's Casino, which will be located at 1524 6th Avenue Southwest, Unit B. Anyone here to talk about that? All right, then I would take a motion if someone was so inclined.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilwoman Langer and a second from Councilman Reinbold. Anyone from the council have anything on this one? Brett, is this within the facility of the existing Rolly's bar? Will there be an addition or a new structure out there? sir. Anyone else from the council before we take a vote on this one? All right, Jordan, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Fauberg,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Move right along to our possible approval to purchase a new rotary lawnmower from Titan Machinery in the amount of $29,500. And here to tell us about that is Robin Bob Zine. Robin?
This is a process that we've used before with Sourcewell Contracting. Rather than bidding, we do this through a joint powers process, and we've done it successfully many times. We're requesting the purchase of this woods mower through Titan in the amount of $29,500. The other one's in pretty tough shape, and we just need to get something a little more reliable out there right now. So we're asking your approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Rife. Any questions for city engineer on this one? Go ahead, Councilman.
Yeah, Robin, was this anticipated and budgeted?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
What will you do with the old one that's in tough shape?
We typically surplus it. Somebody, contractor may pick it up, or somebody that will use it less full-time. Ours are out 40 hours a week. It may be serviceable for somebody who's gonna use it, a couple times a year during the summer, but.
Do you have a need for a lawnmower like that, Charlie?
Well, with mosquitoes out like they are, no. But what would you value that at?
You're not gonna get a lot for it. It'll go for under 1,000
Okay,
when it's sold.
okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else from the council? Jordan, would you give us a roll call?
Councilmember Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Fauberg,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got our possible approval to pay request number 1 for accessible quadrants project to CWF Masonry and Construction, amount of $54,400.68. Robin, how's that coming along?
This is moving along well. We have done about 20 quadrants for this $54,000, and we do have $200,000 budgeted. Our plan is to spend as much of that $200,000. This is one of those contracts we want to maximize the expenditure because we're getting more accessible things completed, and that sets good with everybody in the public. So we'll continue to work toward it. We've got another area picked out right now, so this is your first pay request of several that will happen during the course of the year.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion from Councilman Johnson, second from Councilman Reinbold. Any questions before we take our vote?
Quick question.
Go ahead, Josh.
What percentage are we done with that project?
There's called non-compliant, partially compliant, and fully compliant. We have we're more than half with fully compliant now, very little that is non-compliant. And so we're picking up the non-compliance here and there, and we're working on the partially compliance, which would be the ones with ramps, but not the truncated domes, the colored domes that you'll see for those that are visually impaired. So we're picking off a little bit of each, and a number of the ones that were totally compliant, we're starting to see some of those that were done in concrete panels. Some of those have delaminated badly, so we're replacing a few of those now too. So we're in pretty good shape actually, but we got to keep packing away to get some of those partially compliance out of the way too.
So the way that you handle it is a geographic territory and then some of the outliers here and there that are in tough need. Thank you, Robin. We've got our motion. We've got our second. Anything else from the council? Jordan, would you take a roll call vote on that pay request, please?
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Fauberg,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got our request to purchase the 2023 and 2024 fuels from a state contract for this area. Robin, what can you tell us about that fuel contract?
At one time, we used to do our own bidding for these, and the market is so volatile that the bidders really had difficulty in figuring out how, because we asked them to give us a price for the year. And that, you know, the market is so volatile right now that you can't do that. So the state came up with a process that works very well for us, and it's based on the market value that they pay at the tank. And we basically pay them a transportation charge on top of that. So they know they're getting paid for their transportation side of it, and then a little bit on top for some profit. So this process works very well. We're doing it with Harms and Volin. We've worked with them in the past successfully, and we recommend approval of these two contracts.
So moved.
And second.
We've got a motion from Councilwoman Liebelt and a second from Councilman Johnson, and I saw in the note that Harms had kind of requested a minimum amount of purchase. Is that gonna be a problem to hit that number?
No, that's the way we've been doing it for years. The caveat, just make sure that they're not bringing out 3,000 gallons to fill a tank. They've got to have a larger 8,000 gallon supply in order to make the transportation fee work for them.
Thank you, Rob. Any other questions from the council? All right, Jordan.
Councilmember Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Foberg,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got our possible acceptance of a Recon Interceptor police bicycle from Stephen West Automotive. Here to tell us about that is Chief McNeil. Chief.
Good evening. So, I'm asking for your permission to accept the donation of a Recon police bicycle to our department. It allows us to patrol and engage the community in unique ways, and it will be used at special events and community policing projects as well.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson, second from Councilwoman Langer. Any questions for Mr. McNeil?
I just have a
Up
question.
there, go ahead, Councilwoman.
Is this something that you guys have wanted? I'm just curious. I think it's great. And is it something that we'll look at in the future as
Yeah,
a police fleet?
yeah, it's a good question. We've had bicycles for our police use before. Depending on how our manpower is and how we're training new people and the projects we have in any given summer, we're able to use those more or less. So with this, they became a dealership for this, and it has a unique capability with the electric aspect to it. So with that, I think even a chief could ride that bike. Okay. So they talk about less fatigue, so I appreciate that. Yeah.
I like it. What is the cost of something like this normally? Are we able to?
This one, I'm told, is around $5,000 with the equipment on it.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right, Jordan.
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Foberg,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Thanks for joining us, Chief. In his defense, I'm certain he could ride a regular bicycle. I've seen him running on an incline on a treadmill, so he doesn't even do that regularly. So, next we've got our presentation of a quarterly update for the Aberdeen Chamber of Commerce by Lisa Anderson. Lisa, welcome. Great little green light should be on, but if it's not, would you go ahead and press that for us?
Good evening. The little reports are going around, so I'll just dive into some of the things that we've been doing with the promotion fund money. And it's just kind of broken down by kind of category and then message along with that. So at the top, you'll see our hometown support category this year, and this is 2023 to date, so January 1, May 21. NSU Wolves basketball, we help support the game broadcasts on Midcoast. People could watch that. And then the South Dakota Magazine did their first ever South Dakota Arts Journal, and we wanted to make sure Aberdeen was represented in there. So if people are looking for the cool art scene in the state, so we actually worked with Northern on that ad, that we split it. So that was kind of cool to be in that first edition there. So. And then going into relocation and workforce recruitment, The stuff on the left is the relocation packets that we are able to distribute to businesses and individuals. So you'll see the stats there. The 50 plus is when businesses ask us, usually they ask us for a stack of them, and they use them for recruiting new employees to town. And we also mail packets out when we get those calls from out of state. So you'll see the states where we were able to send those so far this year. We are just running out of those 2-pocket folders that we use for those, which have lasted 3 years. Well, it was pretty good. So we just actually got those in today. So the Relocation Companion is the company from Sioux Falls that we began working with this year. We are actually using 29% of our budget for the first half of the year for her. It's quite her startup costs are quite a bit because she does a huge amount of legwork behind the scenes, as you'll see kind of some of the bullet points there. This is what she's working on right now. We're kind of just letting her do her stuff behind the scenes before she brings us her report and we start working with her together. But the Community Relocation Strategic Assessment and Plan, Employer Relocation Education Training Materials, and the Relocation Roadmap Design Elements customized to the Aberdeen community. So I know she's going to be working with community organizations and local employers and do a lot of interviewing and find out how she can customize this whole thing for us. So there is an annual kind of a fee, I guess you would call, which is extremely low after this year, but it just kind of helps her help us keep things updated and on track. So on the right side there, you'll see aberdeensd.com. I normally don't give a huge amount of report on the whole website itself, but since we had such a huge chunk of money for the Relocation Companion, I didn't start any of the other digital marketing until this month because, just the amount of money it took to pay her. So I gave you a little bit more in-depth look at what aberdeensd.com is doing. So this also, again, is just first of the year to now. Kind of some of the interesting points I thought were the top 10 pages that people are looking at, and of course the homepage, typical that's first. But Caroline Live Cam has been a huge hit, as you can see. It's almost as much as the homepage. And then we go into the other ones, which I think feels like a lot of that is people looking at it from out-of-town perspective for a lot of those things, like the rent and the transportation and living here, those sorts of things. And then there's some, on the right side of that, there's some demographics. Interestingly, 56% male, which I'm not sure why that is. And then the age groups, the 35 to 44 age group was the highest. They were all quite similar as far as the breakdown of that, but that is the group that is showing up as having the most interaction with the website. And then the top cities you'll see at the bottom there where people have been looking. It's a little bit deceptive that actually the third behind Aberdeen and Chicago is Ashburn, Virginia. And I was super curious on why that was. Had no idea how that was even going on. But so I did a little snooping online, and I found out that Ashburn is the home to one of the biggest technology centers in the world. Internet companies like Amazon, Time Warner, and AOL actually route their information through the Dulles Technology Center there. So maybe one of those things where you see maybe it's not quite as it appears, but I just thought that was kind of an interesting little side note on there, that Ashburn was actually the third highest, but it's probably coming from all over the country. And then below that is particularly the Rightmove landing page, which is what we use when we are doing the digital marketing and things like that. So if you'll flip your sheet over, you'll see, actually we just started, like I said, we just started that digital marketing again with CF Digital Group. And it's flatlined until we started moving on it again and started getting it out there, and that's when all the hits came. So kind of interesting, once we start getting it out there, it really comes alive again. And then, we've been working, and you'll see the top cities, that's really close to where we've been concentrating our effort with that. And I apologize to Portland, I forgot the O, sorry, our Oregonians. And then Day visitors is the next group, and that's something that we do all year round, and that's more the local stuff within the 100-mile radius. So we just want to get people here to spend their money rather than going to Fargo or Sioux Falls or somewhere else. So that's why we really kind of hit that area hard. And shop, dine, do business, spring and summer events, and the recreation available are the messages that we've been putting out there. So we encourage people not only to come here to spend money, but also take part in our rec trails, visit the Arboretum, visit the museum, visit the library, you know, all the things, the water park, Wiley Park, all those things. So hopefully they'll spend money also when they come and do those sorts of things. And then the support local message. We've been regularly supporting the shop local messages on Kello. You'll see the stats for the gift cards year to date, and also the comparison to last year, the same time frame, January through May 21st. Those stats are on there too. So pretty similar, a little bit behind from last year. Not sure why that is. I don't know if we had a big thing last year, or if a big push on something. If that's why it's kind of down a little bit. And then also support local. We regularly support Aberdeen Magazine, as well as just giving people reasons to shop local here. And below the Live Shop Buy Local logo, you'll see because local businesses make more local purchases, etc. So that is changing in every issue. We're giving another reason why it's important to spend your money here. And that's something we try to do every year, is remind people of the reasons why it's really important to spend money here rather than going out of town or buying online. And then just some ongoing efforts. We had a women's business summit here in March, and they were looking for some tote bags to send home with all the ladies, so we were able to buy some of those, and then we regularly buy pens and some of those sorts of things that we managed to distribute a lot of those. And then another ongoing effort is just that video library footage, and that's where all the video that we've had taken specific to Aberdeen events and things lives there, and anybody who wants to use it for city marketing purposes is welcome to go out there and use it. And I know we've had Northern grab some, and Downtown Association, I think, and some others. So it's been nice for that, to be able to have that on hand for people who need to use it. So, any questions about anything at all? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight, Lisa. Good to hear from you. As always, appreciate your efforts over there. Thanks, Gail. Appreciate you as well. All right, we'll move along to our review and approval of our claims and payroll. First, we've got our bills, which is for this week, May 22nd, and payroll is the pay period of May 7th through May 20th, as well as all the insurance and other things associated with that. Can I get a motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilwoman Liebelt, and a second from Councilman Reinbold. Jordan, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Langer.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reif.
Aye.
Liebelt.
Aye.
Coburg.
I accept the Dakota Bank items.
Councilmember Ronayne.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got our city manager's report. Joe, what have you got for us this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We heard a mention of mosquitoes a little bit ago, and the good news is the Parks Department is starting their first round of mosquito spraying tomorrow. They've been doing little things along the way. This will be the first big community spray. They've actually been prepping for this and battling smaller areas of water, which there are a lot of areas of water around town this year. So tomorrow night will be the first big around town spray. Just a quick reminder, next week is the 5th Monday, so there's no council meeting, and city offices will be closed because it's also Memorial Day. And then the third thing, this was brought to me by Councilman Ronayne, and I said we'd plug it in here, and I think he might help me with this a little bit. But earlier this year, you appointed some council liaisons to a variety of groups, and one of them was the ADC for the first time, which was good news. Councilman Ronayne and Councilwoman Langer were appointed to that. Councilman Ronayne has had a discussion. I think they took exception to having 2 liaisons. He explained that we have that with several groups. And they wanted to have a little more involvement in that, I think. But Councilman Renane, do you want to take over?
Happy to. I had a meeting, I got asked to join a meeting at Rod Tobin's office. And a couple members of the official, a couple officials from Development Corp were there. Rod was there, and actually we had a nice meeting. But one of the things they said is we understand that nobody has more than one liaison, and we don't think we should be singled out to have two. We are very worried about confidentiality. They told me that because I've known the gentleman I was talking to, and because I'm a lawyer who understands confidentiality, they said they're willing to accept me being on the attending their meetings without signing a non-disclosure agreement. But they really only want one liaison, and between Tiffany and me, nothing personal, Tiffany for me, but they didn't want Tiffany there. They wanted me there. I'm willing to do whatever the council wants us to do, but that was the message that I was given.
I was also not invited to that meeting. Shocker.
So Ron,
Councilman Ronayne, or
Ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask?
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Did the beginning of the story start with, welcome to both of you, can you please sign this confidentiality agreement?
Yes, we were asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement. And the way I read it, Councilwoman, is that anything that goes on there, I would not be permitted to discuss with the council. And I think my obligation to I'm a member of the Aberdeen City Council. I owe a fiduciary obligation to the city. And what that means to me is if I come into knowledge that I think the council needs to know, I have an obligation to the council to report that. And this was going to hamper that. And so that was the position that I took. And I told him I didn't think I could sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Thank you, Robin. Ron, as far as the other groups that do have two delegates from the, can you speak to that? Are we far enough removed from that? That would have been a July.
Well, here's what I can speak to is that we do traditionally appoint two liaisons to most of our various other boards. And I think, given the context, if both liaisons wanted to show up at a meeting, that's, to my knowledge, that's never been an issue. I'm not sure why the reason is that we have two, but I think it's so we can make sure to have at least one person at a meeting. And that liaison's job isn't to necessarily participate in the meeting, but to observe and report matters of interest and concern back to the council. That's what the liaison's role would be. So I can tell you that ADC also, when you were appointing liaisons, you appointed two like you do with many of the other boards and committees.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
No disrespect to your incredibly difficult law degree that you earned, Robin, your many, many, many years of practice, but I don't think it takes.
Hey, not that many. I'm
sorry,
young.
a few years. A few years. I don't think it takes a law degree to understand confidentiality in an executive session and to keep your mouth shut. But I can respect that, it does take maybe relationships and for them to understand that they trust you, and I respect that as well. But I do also think that it doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense when we do have two on almost, I don't know of anyone that we don't have two on actually. So that if one of us can't make it, the other one can. I can't remember when it came to the confidentiality or the non-disclosure that they wanted us to sign. Ron, did they say, you did not advise us to sign that, correct?
Correct. I felt that confidentiality agreement was inconsistent with your obligations as liaisons to be able to report back to the council issues of concern or interest. as I understand it right now, the NDA or the confidentiality agreement is not being requested for the council liaisons. So that matter has kind of been set aside. I think they understand that that's the liaison's job, is to come back to the council. The liaisons understand that certain of the information that is shared certainly may be proprietary type information that a business would not want out into the public realm. That's understood. That's right in the statute, so that information could be reported back to the council, presumably in an executive session type setting, to protect that information. So I think they understood that. As I understand it, their one concern is that there's two liaisons and one is not a lawyer.
If I might, in their defense, they believe that they had somebody who was attending their meetings who did not hold their conversations in confidence. And I assured them that our plan was that if Tiffany and I had reports to make, that we would intend to do them in executive session. And I think they're satisfied that if we make a report in executive session, that we are all duty bound to hold those matters within confidence. And so I think they were satisfied with that, and they did not insist that I sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I do think that we should have two liaisons, genuinely for this. I do think it's really important that we're there, and I know that both of us have pretty crazy schedules. So I think it's important in order to rebuild the relationship, which I've continually said I want to have happen. So I don't think it's a bad idea for us to have two. I do think that this group is an important one for us to be at and to be a part of. If I am the problem, I want what's best for the council and the relationship. So I have no problem addressing that, but I do think we need to have two, personally.
Yeah, and I see Rob appears to be sitting in a hotel room as we speak, so.
That's his bedroom.
Mr. Mayor, is it?
Does in fact travel.
Oh,
Councilwoman.
Holiday Inn. You're gonna have a good day.
I'm going to be really smart tomorrow because it's a holiday. And I'm thinking about flying a jet plane.
All right, Councilwoman Forward.
So I just want to make sure I have all the pieces. So we could have two people if they both sign the confidentiality, but we don't want to sign the confidentiality. So they're happy to have one person as long as that person is on double secret probation.
And they know the handshake.
I don't think they said that. I don't think they said that. It's not we get two if we sign their non-disclosure agreement. I think they're saying they were operating under the assumption that nobody else had two. And I did tell them that wasn't accurate, but they said we only want one. And I don't know if I don't know how strongly they would adhere to that position.
So I think what we're looking for tonight to kind of close this up is, do you want to stick with two? And if so, the two that you've appointed, or do you want to do something different? That's what I think we're looking for.
Is that your ringtone?
No, I think he's
He's got bored.
Instagram reel running.
He got bored.
Do we need to do we just have consensus, or how does this
Does anyone have a strong feeling in one way or the other? How about?
I don't, but should we go back and try to come up to some sort of conclusion here, or do we just make the decision, and how does this work? I mean, what's the best way to move forward here?
I think if you've made a decision of two and who they are, you either say we want to keep that, or you say we want to do something different.
How charming are you, Tiffany? You have to
Councilman
be.
Reinbold?
I would really like to see two people on that board, just for the fact of, you're right, it's hard for both people, or at least one person, to make it all the time. Do we come back to them with our own NDA that we would be willing to sign that says we could speak in executive session to stuff, but not to the public? Because I think that's their biggest downside, and I totally understand that.
If I need to sign something that Ron is okay with me signing, I'm willing to do that if Rob doesn't, I think that there's a compromise, and I really wanna show in good faith that I wanna work with this organization, I wanna repair the relationship and move forward successfully, so.
I think if we had,
I'm definitely willing to sign something as long as it doesn't bound Rob or, or we feel more comfortable with it, yes, I think that's a good.
I think if it's good for one to sign, it'd be okay for both.
Mhm.
So, but I'm not a lawyer.
Well, can I
ahead.
weigh in on this?
Ron, what have you got?
The council took formal action as part of a council action request when it initially appointed the liaisons, and I think if there's gonna be any change to that, you should also do it at a formal setting, at a future meeting. But in this conversation that we initially were having with ADC, and again, I think they've dropped that particular request at this point, but let's just assume that they would still like to move forward. We have a conflict of interest policy that identifies what can happen in executive session, what shouldn't happen outside of executive session. We have the ordinances themselves about conflict of interest. We have the council handbook that sets forth standards for the council. We've got all kinds of things out there that basically tell our council members what happens in executive session stays in executive session. And so, again, I'm not opposed to if you folks are instructing me to work with ADC on some kind of a confidentiality agreement, I'm happy to do that. But I also want you to understand that I don't think that should in any way take greater emphasis in your mind than all the things we already have existing out there.
Mr. Mayor?
And I think they are satisfied that as long as all we do is talk about this in executive session, they are protected. And I don't think, with all due respect, I don't think that's an issue anymore, Councilman Reinbold.
Okay.
I think.
Councilman
I think they just want one.
Well, and if we appointed two, is there a way, Ron, that you could write an NDA for Tiffany to basically say, like, she's gonna, I don't think they're concerned about what's happening in our executive session. What I'm hearing is that they're concerned about what happens in their meeting and going out and telling somebody in town that there's a TGI Fridays coming or whatever, and then somebody jacking up the rent or whatever the thing is, I think that's a concern, not with the council itself.
If that issue is something that will make them more comfortable with having both of our liaisons present at a meeting at the same time, then I'm certainly open to looking at that.
And I'm open to that too.
Yeah.
So from this, you'll re-examine that NDA that they had sent to see if there was a kind of an adjustment to that would be satisfactory, or?
The NDA itself is overly broad, but there is some language in there to allow for written exceptions to that. So maybe we can work through that with them.
Well, I'd have to imagine the majority of their meeting is not confidential information.
Well, I would too, but that's not the way the NDA reads.
It is not. They talk about the weather, it's confidential information.
I cannot be bound to that.
Okay, well, I guess for marching orders then, Ron, you'll at least examine and see if there is some solution that you can come up with
I will.
between
The
now
plan-
and the future.
The plan, and ADC can see this, the plan will be to follow up with them after their meeting with Councilman Ronayne to see what we can do to get this so that both of our liaisons can be at their meetings doing the job that this council wants them to do.
All right, thank you, Ron. Thank you, members. With that, we've got an executive session to discuss some contract negotiations to adhere to. Carl, do you have anything to share here? No. All right, sounds good. I didn't see you sign up for the open forum, but you're sitting there patiently, so I thought I would ask. Perfect.
Real quick, Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilman Wright.
Just for the Recon Interceptor police bicycle, I don't know that we officially thanked Lush Chevrolet, so thank you.
Oh, yeah, good point.
That's very generous.
And not just that, the cars that they provide in addition, they're very, very thoughtful over there. All right, so then we'll take a few moments, and when we return, we will vote to move to executive session to discuss that contract arrangement. Give a little bit of time for the people that aren't necessary for this meeting to clear the room. Thank you all for joining us.